In the first reading, my friends, we have what is referred to by the experts as the original kerygma, which means proclamation. Kerissein is to proclaim as a herald. And notice in the Gospels how a large proportion of all four Gospels is a narration of every detail of the Passion and Resurrection. It is as though that were the crunch and the message that they went carrying throughout the Mediterranean basin with high voltage of enthusiasm and which set the world alight. This last week I have been called to give a week on the theme of faith because the Holy Father has recently published a motu proprio called, well, I have it here in Italian, La Porta della Fede, the gate or the doorway of faith. And it is 40 years after the beginning of the Second Vatican Council, 1962. It's more than 40 years, it's 50 years, isn't it? And he is therefore asking for a year of faith. And this document is a meditation for the Church in preparation for it when it begins on the 11th of October. Half a century, therefore, after the grace of this ecumenical council, which our generation has lived and has yet to benefit from in its fullness and enter into its game. So, before the Blessed Sacrament, I was meditating with these good Cistercians and with nuns and people on the whole question of faith. And I would like to share one particular thought with you this morning on that, because it concerns us all. It's also linked, as it happens, with the Gospel which we had today, namely that of the Ephphatha, which is the command in Hebrew of open, but in the passive, be opened. And the whole opening of the soul to its God passes through the faculties of the soul, which are, as you know, Trinitarian, because we are a reflection of the Blessed Trinity. It has been seen by the great saints like St. Catherine of Siena as something like this. The memory reflects the power of the Father. The intellect reflects the wisdom and understanding of the Logos, the Word, the second person, the self-understanding and self-expression of the Father. And the will reflects the goodness and love that flows in the Blessed Trinity and is personal. The link between Father and Son is itself love personified, the Holy Spirit. What makes us, as we would say, tick, because we are a spirit people. Now, obviously, in a week of reflection on faith, one goes into the whole question of the mind and of the link between what is believed and what happens then on the level of the will. Because the mind, by its understanding of things, commands, and not to have full knowledge is to be at risk as regards what we do. Hence the whole mess right now in Ireland. It all goes back essentially to a lack of catechesis. People no longer have the input in their mind and therefore are bound to go astray in the way they comport themselves on the will and on the behavior. Therefore, it is not indifferent what we take in and how we take in what we take in. Before the Blessed Sacrament exposed, I was reflecting on the way in which we harm our souls by having too many things coming into them. Observe yourself analyze your interior world. Is it or is it not true that the more words are coming into you, the more weak is the effect of each? Whereas the more virginal is your atmosphere, the more profound a word has as regards its echo and its power and resonance in your being. I was comparing with them how in the years of formation in France, when no words were coming in, a single word can change a life and bring tears to the eyes. Whereas now, with all our words, we are dulled and not easily moved. Now, as it happens, this weekend I had to come back, not through Rome, but through Pisa, which meant actually going through Siena with friends of mine. And I was nearly moved to tears when, as we came back from the country area near where my monastery was, we saw the towers of Siena once again, and what that meant. And then, by chance, because we had to go through the old streets of Siena, where before we had carried the miracle, we have the miracle of the Blessed Sacrament that we carry through Siena every year, and we have Eucharistic miracle, and we carry it through with the Archbishop. So there we were, these streets again, and there was the cathedral where grace had come from heaven. And it's strange how just a word can lead to a cosmic grace. The word initially was, through a friend, get transferred to Italy, to that monastery. And then the other word was what came in the heart, while in the early time, just calmly doing the work of a sacristan, obviously not yet a priest, but at the altar, the high altar, preparing morning after morning for the others, the chasubles, all the things that had to be done for the High Mass, which was always very solemn. It hit me. Just keep saying fiat, and that cosmic grace will come. And so it was. And of course, a few months later, it led to going to that cathedral and just letting the bishop place his hands, which were the hands of Christ. And it all happens because of a simple saying fiat and listening to what is extremely delicate and often can't get through in our day, because young men and young women can't hear the whisper of grace. There are too many other words in the way. That is a parenthesis. However, it is essential because it is this element of Ephphatha, be opened, and only when we actually do come aside and empty ourselves of words, and I mean empty ourselves of words, are we able to hear. Now, in practice, look at your week. Are there spaces? I went into the way in which, way back early on in Kilnacrot, from the first times we were taught that henceforth until death you will have 1 holy hour before the Blessed Sacrament every day, wherever you are. And that makes a huge difference in our week and our life. If every day we have the holy hour. Why? If it's done properly, God then is able, if He has something to whisper, to do so, and He has the opportunity. If we are whizzing through our day so much that we have not got that quality time of intimacy, that prime time, just gazing and waiting for a word, then we'll do our own thing. Maybe for the Lord we'll do many things, but it'll be our own thing. And perhaps at the end of our life, having done all kinds of wonderful things, we would have missed the point, because we were doing it and not the whisper of the still small voice. So I just conclude, my friends, Because, as the Beatles put it, there are places in our life where things happened and where we can revisit past moments and joys. That is the cathedral where the grace of ordination came from the Last Supper down to here, through the high altar of Siena Cathedral, where the likes of St. Catherine had prayed, and St. Bernardino, who should have been Archbishop of Siena, but refused because he wanted just to preach, and knew that if he became Archbishop, he would be put in a straitjacket. So there it is, the cathedral, where also the Eucharistic miracle comes every year at Corpus Christi on the Thursday itself, because our miracle is kept in the other Basilica of St. Francis. But the Lord hasn't changed in those hosts which were stolen in 1730 and which are exactly as they were still now, as when they were consecrated and stolen and found again in an alms box from another church. And here is a place where, should you ever be in that area, you can find history incarnate. One of the oldest monasteries in Italy, which we opened and which goes back to 781, and where we learned on the old Carolingian altar built in the first monastery, the present sacristy, but also a chapel itself, here it is next to it, where we were taught to celebrate the sacred mysteries, where we heard each other's confessions and the confessions of many people, young and old. A place where grace crosses the centuries, as long as the soul quietly says, Fiat.